Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital company. On this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping and many times changing the sports business industry. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our 76 Capital website. Today, my guest on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show is Randy Pritzker. I am really excited about this episode. I mean, I say that a lot of on these episodes, but this is a really special one, and you'll hear why in a minute. Randy's a successful business person and really a great person overall. He's the former CEO of Omicron. Omicron was a technology consulting firm that was one of Microsoft's first partners, right? I mean, really,
we got there early.
We can't wait to tell that story. Randy is also a high school basketball referee, refs some other sports, and is an official in other sports as well. And he's just going to have great stories for us. So I'm really excited. So Randy, welcome to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
It's been a while since I saw you. We certainly every once in a while touch base, but it's a thrill to be here, and I'm honored that you asked me to come on.
Well, I'm so excited because we're going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about basketball and sports, and this is all thanks to Rachel.
Yes. I have twins, and as you know, the twins, when they graduated undergraduate at Penn State, I offered them that I would pay if they'd go to law school because I wanted them to have something I never got to do. I just wasn't smart enough. And the idea of reading that many books just wasn't very appealing to me. So they both took me up on it. And as a result, they both ended up actually practicing law, and they have a very successful firm in Philadelphia. They specialize in real estate law. And I won't say to my surprise, but to my delight, this past year, their firm was voted the #1 law firm in Philadelphia. So here you have this reasonably small but very well thought of law firm. When you compare it to all the real big ones in Philadelphia that we all know the names of, yet they were picked as the #1 law firm in Philadelphia. Last I'll tell you is that I had the honor of going down to city council's chambers, and Rachel was just honored there. Both as for the success of the company, but also as a woman's led business. And she was honored and had a proclamation in her name. So I got to watch them read that and do that, which is, that's what at this point in life, that's the best day you have.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. Yeah. She's a force of nature,
She's a force. Yeah. There's no doubt.
I mean, really I'm so happy, and thankful that, she brought us back together for this. I mean, when we first met, it was the late 90s.
Sure.
You were running Omicron, this technology company that was ahead of its time. Talk about, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, you were working with Microsoft. How you were bringing Microsoft to Philadelphia? How did that happen?
Well, Philip, they were here. It's just at that time, the idea of a consulting company dealing with micro technology. When I first started Omicron, I had the idea. Really, we thought of PCs because we were anywhere near a laptop. PCs when we talked about VisiCalc, and it was going to save us because
suddenly VisiCalc.
VisiCalc was the before Excel. It was the before Excel. We did VisiCalc. Probably to most users out there now, they've never heard of it, but that was the first tool that everybody got to. I had this crazy idea, being a systems builder, that someday we were going to build very sophisticated applications for these now getting smaller and smaller and smaller devices. And I remember when I left my years at D&B Consulting, to say that they laughed is an understatement. That I was crazy, that fit in there too. And I was sure of it. And I can remember like it was yesterday, at the time I was in New York, walking down Madison Avenue and saying to myself, you'll see my brilliance here in a minute. I know someday someone's going to ask us to build an application and we're willing to pay as much as like $25,000. Now, as you now know, they now do tens and hundreds of millions of dollars when they build that stuff. So I was right about the thought. I had the dimension of it a little wrong, thank God. And it went on. And Microsoft was an easy pick for me because they were such a dominant player. And so if you understood the Microsoft environment, like most vendors, they needed people to talk about their technology and bring it to the client side. And that was what we did. Our whole job was to make people successful when they picked Microsoft as their platform.
And I remember also you and your team were writing books at the time.
We wrote, there were some books that were written. There were a lot of articles written. Some of them I still get a chuckle out of. I'll tell you a real quick one, just
Please.
kind of aside. I got picked as one of the 100 people to watch in Philadelphia. Now, you know me to know that watch me ref a basketball game. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But once I was done with work, I went and coached my kids. And so I'm not, so I always used to say, one of the 100 people to watch. What are you watching? I mean, it's crazy. But the funniest part of all that, so here I am, one of the 100 people to watch in Philadelphia. I'm on the cover of Business Philadelphia magazine. I was asked to do the photo shoots. I had to schlep 7 suits in and do all this kind of stuff. And then I get a call, Randy, we'd like you to give the speech to represent the 100 people. Would you please give the speech? Happy to do it. There's a lot of fun that came out of that, but the best part, or the best 2 parts, was why you would have the 100 people to watch party and celebration in New Jersey. When this is a Philadelphia magazine. I never ever got that. And I'll never forget also standing up and starting my speech. And it really was a social cocktail hour. And when I tell you, I watched the first speaker before me who was the editor, and nobody stopped talking. No one heard a word he said. And he said, okay, Randy, you're on now. And I started going through my speech, and I got to the end of the first paragraph. And I realized what was going on. And I literally went to the bottom paragraph and said, it's really been a pleasure. Everybody have a wonderful night. And then I went to the parents listen, I got a babysitting problem at home. So I got to go. And in exchange for this wonderful moment, all that I had done with photo shoots and everything else, he said, I have something for you. I said, all right, this night will be salvaged. And there I got a gift wrap box of tasty cake. Now you see what my kinds of success.
But that's Philly, right?
That was Philly.
Was it, what kind of tasty cake? You remember what was in there? Like,
oh, there's no doubt about it. It was chocolate juniors. I mean, it has to be. Tasty cake was a client of ours, and I mean, I can go on and on about tasty cake because my father had one every day of his life.
Really?
Every day of his life.
A junior?
Junior was the very first tasty cake.
That's the one with the chocolate on the top, right?
That's the chocolate. No, it's a chocolate with the white cream.
Okay.
So the chocolate junior, which is the very first one.
Okay.
And I don't want to go too far because I'm kind of a historian, and I've sat with the couple of CEOs there, and I've had tasty cake and tasty cake.
Well, I mean, but tasty cake, Wawa. I mean, these are Philly things, right? I mean,
yeah, and each one a little.
And you're a Philly guy. I mean,
I was. I went to New York so I could come back, and truly, for all those who are wondering where to go build businesses, go to New York and learn. Come back to Philadelphia and bring that knowledge with you. And so. My whole thing was I would drive around. And I did it when I was in New York. I did it in Philadelphia. And I would take a list and I'd drive around the buildings and I'd say, okay, that's where they are. That's where they are. That's where they are. And I have to make them clients. So I always had a list of, if I'm going to be successful to begin this year, next year, who are the clients? Who are the companies? I've got to have on my customer list. And that's how I kind of laid out the way I thought beginning of each year.
You know, it's interesting. I think about you a lot. I mean, we met initially through my original partner, Berg,
yep.
Who was just a great man. You know, not everyone got to see probably the side that we both got to know with Ian. I mean, Ian was very tough outwardly, but what a great person.
Sweet man.
Just a good man. And
can I bore you for another?
Please, no, please.
Quick one. I don't know if I ever told you this story. I think you probably heard it. Part of how I got to meet you, which was great, and then you guys let me come to some of the meetings and help me with whether what they were describing technically made any sense. And I got you let me play a little bit of a role for a while, which was wonderful. I happened to be walking in town in Philly that day, coming out of the park, right in Center City, and I think you know the story. as I'm walking around that day for no particular reason, there's Ian. And I said, what are you up to? He says, I'm getting in the technology business with Wayne. And I certainly had heard of your name.
This is like 1999.
Yeah, this is you probably haven't even signed any document, haven't seen a lawyer yet. I don't even know if you have a name for your company yet, but you have Ian, and Ian's got you. And that's to me has always been a match made in heaven. And I remember saying to him, and I think he'll back me up, Ian, you know nothing about technology. I mean, your background, what you did for a living, your personality. He literally said, I bought this book though. This is all I need. And he said it seriously. And as you know, that's all I needed to be an investor and to help work with you. And the success was to follow. That's a very true story.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I mean,
I doubt he read the book, by the way.
Look, that guy knew people.
Sure
he,
did.
He really did.
He sure did.
And he really understood, he just knew business. He really understood business.
Well, when you were a big deal at Aramark in this town, which he was at the time, yeah, you were somebody. You were somebody.
So, it's interesting because a lot of times at 76 Capital, we think about how we're bringing new technology, innovation to the sports industry,
sure,
to the gaming industry, to the sports betting world, the overall casino industry, et cetera, like trying to bring new and exciting things. But I think back to your Omicron days. I mean, that's what you said. You're walking around the streets looking at these different companies. I mean, you were literally bringing tech to companies that were paper and pencil and pen type companies for the most part, right?
Yes. And particularly as I'm leaving New York, I remember when company I worked for got acquired by Dun & Bradstreet. And I was very lucky to be put in charge of the consulting group to now be the consultant to the new parents of D&B, this wonderfully huge company. And exactly to your point, I would walk around 299 Park Avenue, which is their headquarters, or 299 Park Avenue. I'd walk around their headquarters, and I was allowed to walk around. I was very lucky. And I'd see, let's say you're the CFO, and I'd see you in your office with a calculator and a pen and paper, and you were making a thing. I'd go and I'd walk in literally. Now you got to remember, I'm off 25 at this moment. I started there when I was 21, and I would walk in your office and I go, "Have I not taught you anything?" And I'd say, "Show me what you're doing." And that's where we started from, where people just didn't know what you could do and what it would mean, let alone where we are today. So yeah, the way you represented, it was a time when companies were, the relationship between technology, the mainframe guys, and now what we now call end users, which we now take for granted because everybody's an end user now. That was not one of the most wonderful relationships, nor did it particularly advance like we do today. And AI is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, what would AI have done for you?
But when I think about that, well, first of all, it would have started a whole new division. It would have been a crazy search to go find the talent because everybody's got to be looking for it. And what it would have meant to us, and it's funny, I've thought about it. Two different things. It would have been to go to the big companies and, like we did with Microsoft, help them implement it because they would already know, as you know, because they're putting hundreds of billions of dollars aside over the next few years to get started to that. And they kind of know it's going to be successful, but they don't know yet exactly how big and why. But they have a feeling, so they're putting hundreds of billions of dollars, literally hundreds of billions of dollars towards that with servers and things. But small companies, it would have been very interesting to help explain to the smaller companies what it would mean for them, where the big companies are already convinced it's just how will you do it. Imagine, I always thought the idea of going to the small mid-sized companies and open their eyes to what it could mean for them because they don't have the resources to be going to conferences and invest. And then interestingly, our company was broken into a small division and big company division for that very reason, because the conversations were different.
I mean, just the speed, right? And to be able to, how fast things can now be.
And it thinks for you. One of the things as a consultant, I don't have to tell you because you're consultative by nature. Basically, you're brought in to say, well, how about this? AI is essentially saying, wait a minute, how about this? I saw your question. How about this as an answer? And you go to Google now, every Google search.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and so switching gears a little bit, you're this tech entrepreneur, building this business, Omicron,
right?
And reffing basketball games. Like, how did that all come about?
Thanks for asking that, because the day I got my first PIAA patch, so I could do high school
in the state of Pennsylvania.
In the state of Pennsylvania, that's who runs our state. Every state's a little different. In our state, it's run by this very powerful organization, the PIAA. It was, if you look at the 5 or 10 happiest moments, like in business, you look at who are the 5 relationships, who are the 5 accounts that you close. If you ask me the 5 really moments I look back, besides my children and my wife and all that, being able to get my patch and go do that is on my list. Where it came from was I was very lucky to play well into my early 40s in 18 and over leagues. And in fact, I had 35 my last night, but I also had the tearing of my knee a year apart, where it's where one knee, then I tore the next knee 1 year apart. So for me, it was, how do I stay involved in the game? And refereeing became the obvious answer. So I went and studied and took the test and did all the things you had to do. So it kept me on the court. And when I look back on it, I wrote an article for Referee Magazine around them, and it was called, the name of the article, they gave me the whole back page, was called Healthy Choice. The other thing it did was, I believed it was going to put years on my life. I'm 70 now, and I'm still basically doing similar things as I did when I first started at 44, which even then I was an old man. But I was very lucky, and people were very nice, and I got moved along reasonably quickly. But it was that was the need to stay healthy. No, I wasn't going to get up and, like you guys do. You get up at 6 o'clock and go to the gym when it's dark and cold. I presume you do that. And it was my answer. It solved all of those problems. And then I didn't know I would be making lifelong friends, which turns out to be the most valuable part of all the officiating.
Are there certain officials that you ref games with? I mean, in tandem, or
basketball, there's 3 of us.
Right.
Soccer, there's 2 of us till the playoffs. And I also do high school. I do high school and college basketball, high school and college softball, and then I do high school soccer. So over this many years, it's not that you are a crew and you're going to stay together every game.
Okay.
But 26 years later, you have been with some of the guys many, many times and developed friendships. And you learn early in that application that it's kind of who we ref with makes our game, because when we're out there, we only have each other. Everybody else is not that thrilled about us.
So what is that like? I mean, you ref some of the biggest games across the state, right? I mean,
I've done championships galore because I've been very lucky that way. But I'm one of many people.
Why do they pick you?
Well, one, I haven't made a big mistake, which is how you see the NBA. The really good guys, they go to the NBA and they make a mistake and they get fired. And same thing when you see Division I. I haven't made a horrible mistake, because really your job is to have the game be over and have everybody think it was played fair, and that nobody wants to pick up the phone and call your boss and go, I never want to see him again, because that happens. I think, if you ask me, everyone has a different formula when they officiate. Ultimately, it's knowledge of the rules. Ultimately, it's you're in shape or not. But then there is the interaction. I have done okay, both with my relationships with my fellow officials, but coaches have found me approachable. One of the things that's changed over these last 25 years is, when I first started, referees and coaches didn't really see themselves as compadres. It turns out, in a world where we all talk more, social media being what it is and so forth, I was able to be approached and be able to handle the question when it was a question, and kind of give it back to them in a format that was satisfying. And that's a skill you're learning. We put that in an umbrella called game management. That's kind of how you get everybody to feel.
Well, before the
okay.
game, like, do you say, okay, the coach of team A, I'm going to talk to him, and you're going to talk to her, or like whatever. I mean, do you, as the crew, say
Right.
basketball, the three of you, do you say like 2 of us are going to talk to these 2, and this one's going to do this? Or
I have a game tonight, as you know, and I'm fortunate enough to be the crew chief tonight. And here's what we will talk about the game. We will talk about the 2 coaches.
Okay.
We will talk about how they react to things.
Okay.
We'll talk about if it's someone who tends to get a little excited when things don't go their way. We'll talk about how we're going to handle it, but not them in particular, just how we will handle it, because that's how you handle it. And we'll just remind ourselves of that kind of stuff. We do this thing called a pregame, and in that pregame, we literally kind of step through the, let's say, 10, 12, 15 things that every game you either get very right or you don't. And if you get them very right, you can only mess it up so much.
So I have so many questions, but let me go back to technology for 1 second.
Please do.
In high school basketball,
Yes.
and when you see, first from a technology perspective, right? When you see what happens in college today, well, you do college games, right?
Yes, I do. I've done Division II, Division III, junior college. I also did the ABA. I've done the EB. I've done all kind of crazy stuff.
So let's talk about like replay technology.
Yes.
Are there times that you're like, oh my God, I'm so happy there's the replay on this, that the game got the play got a little ahead of you. You really couldn't see it, or what?
Here's where the distinction is. The Division I guys you see on television, which I'm not one of, because I started way too late, and who knows if I was ever going to be good enough at that.
Maybe in a couple years.
Yeah, maybe. They're looking for good 70-year-olds right there. You can tell. That replay is great. I'll tell you where it applies to every referee.
Okay.
We get films of our games. We get films. I get umpteen plays on my email of plays either that I've been in or others have been in. So we're constantly doing film review.
Okay.
So in that way, that's what technology means to us as officials. Yes, we can go VAR in a soccer game and see that to make sure that our call, like you're watching with baseball now, where they're trialing having the cameras decide whether it's a strike or it's not, with 2 challenges and so forth. So does it help? Absolutely, because the single thing we say the loudest and the most is officials. Let's get the call right. That's how do the 3 of us work together and not let our egos get into it.
And I'm sure that reaction that helps. I mean, just being a fan, right? I mean, the fans respect the game more, you more as an official, right? I mean,
there's no doubt. I'll tell you what it has solved it. Certainly in baseball. You remember how when I first started I did baseball before I did college softball. You know that you always would see the coach run out, and we call that pound the flesh. Different than basketball, where we do a stop sign. We go, where are you going? So I remember I'm starting my baseball career, and all of a sudden I'm seeing this guy run out, and I'm going, what are you doing? And then I realized that's what they do. And then they get to have their little pound of flesh like you've watched. And then at a point you say, okay, that's enough. And if they don't realize what enough is enough, that's when you see them get done. The beauty now is that you don't see that so much anymore, because they know it's going to get replayed. So there's rules about what you can and can't replay and when you can do it. So it's taken a lot of that ref you stink out of the game, because now the ref gets to use technology. And everybody's wired up. When we do soccer games, we're wired up and talking to each other, throughout the game.
So as an official across any of these games, I mean, you must get kind of like a player would.
That's so smart that you said that. You hooked on the something that everybody does. Let me let you finish your question.
No, I was going to say, I mean, do you get excited? Do you get it? You get anxious? Do you get, like you're ready to go? Like, like what is that?
It is like being a player. It is absolutely, except you do something different. We have good games. We have bad games. Now, hopefully our bad games are not too bad. We can't go 1 for 25 on our calls. We pretty much got to get them all pretty right. Every once in a while, you can see a play and you go, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure I was in the right spot. And every once in a while, you can say to a coach, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And coach goes, that's fine. Thank you for saying that. Can't do that often, every once in a while. But the fact of the matter is, putting this all together with technology and all this stuff, it's exciting as a referee. It's as exciting to us as it is as a player. And when we get done, we get the sensation of, did we have a good game? Just what makes our good game a good game is not points we scored. It's the sense of the players and coaches walked off the court and said, okay, tonight that team won and they should have won that game. So and we did influence it.
Has there been a situation where you're out there, and I know you've coached, I mean, you've reffed so many games,
right,
and so many great players,
sure,
so many not so good players. Right. Who are some of the players that you were almost like excited to go see, and then, or not see, but officiate their game, and they went out and just were unbelievable?
I would say that I've had a lot of them, but if you ask me, there's someone at the top of my list.
Okay.
And Mo Bamba was probably for me. Every season, usually one kid, a freshman, will show up, and I'll have a couple more games with them than I might have with another team. And for whatever reason, they're going to be great, and we connect. And I had that with Daniel, who then went on to Villanova, and famous for what he did there. Lively, who went down to Duke, So every once in a while, so I can go team by team by team, and I've had those players. Mo was a little different for a number of reasons, not better, not worse, but just different. Hey, he was open, very bright man. I mean, just a bright kid, sweet as can be, and so amazingly talented. And I got a chance to do his championships a couple of times on top of it. So in a way, I got to share in my own way the same experience that he got to share. And then, as I was telling some of your staff, I had the occasion to happen to be going to Atlanta. Mo was about to go to Atlanta to get a connecting flight to start his one-year career at Texas before he went to the NBA. And for the first time, I think probably in his basketball career, he was standing by himself in an airport, because now it wasn't a high school team. It was just Mo, the college kid, with nobody standing there kind of directing him. And I knew we really had the friendship I had hoped we had developed as he kind of stayed with my son, Adam, and I, who was going with me. And I made sure he got on the plane. And I actually had to hold up the door closing because Mo had decided to go get something to drink, and he wasn't on the plane yet. And I was kind of waiting for him to come on, being 6'10", 6'11", with a 7'6" arm
that
span.
wingspan. Wow.
Yeah, he had the biggest one in the NBA at the time. And I was just dying for him to get on, dying for him to start his career, and dying to watch as he walked down the aisle to find a seat, everyone's faces. I literally turned to look and said, I can imagine everyone was going, oh, I hope he's not sitting next to me. He's so big. So, and yet he was such an interesting guy. So Mo stands out like that.
Were there certain venues, or are there certain venues that you like, oh my God, like just to do a game in that venue, just the passion of the crowd, and you just kind of feel it.
The number one, I've had it. Fortunately, I was a better referee than I was a player. So I got to play. I got to ref plays. I never got to play it as a player. In Philadelphia, you want to be at the Palestra. And I've had the chance to do the Palestra a number of times, and for some games that mattered. I just had a chance. So when they moved a high school game, I got a chance to do Wells Fargo the other day.
Oh, wow.
And I had, I've always been there, but I'd never been on that court. So that, even, it's just to play a high school game, but I got to do a game at Wells Fargo. And I've really had the chance to go on all the major college here, whether I, because I was doing a game. And so the kid inside of me still gets excited. And I did the Penn State League, all the branch campuses for a while. And I remember the day being a Penn Stater that I was doing one of the games, and the Lion was there. And the Lion, as kind of walks around, makes fun of people. And I didn't quite know what to do when he was standing next to me, kind of making fun of me. Because as a referee, I just didn't think it was right to put my whistle down and hug him and get an autograph. So a lot of funny things came along the way.
That's great. I mean, were there any, what about some of the bandboxes, right? The small gyms that are like hot, and then they're tight, and the fans are like right on the court.
I'm going to West Philadelphia High School tonight to do a playoff championship game. that place is going to be rocking and crazy because it is like that, where there really isn't a whole lot of room. But then you have places like Bartram. The Public League of Philadelphia not only has had some great players, but it has some of the most interesting places. At Bartram, for instance, the out of bounds at the baseline is the wall. So when the ball goes, it's not out of bounds until it touches the wall, or the player with the ball touches the wall. They throw the ball in, but you push the guy back. As soon as he throws the ball in, it collapses back in to be the wall. So there are, in Philadelphia, if you do the publicly, which I have a particular affinity for, there are probably a half dozen places like Dobbins and others that are, you look and you go, Wilt played at Overbrook. If you walked into the gym at Overbrook, the idea that Wilt played at Overbrook would make no physical sense to you.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. We're starting to wind down here on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. You got to get to go ref a game.
I got to get.
Yeah. I got to get back to work. I mean, we got a lot going on here, but I have to ask you, you know, as you think about what's happening in college sports today with NIL, players getting paid, NIL on the high school level as well. Has that changed anything from your perspective?
Yeah. Let me say one quick thing before we do that. And I just as lucky as I've been in officiating, I was that lucky in business also. And I think it's worthwhile.
Please.
My father taught me on a hot day, don't worry about whose pool it is. In other words, you don't have to be rich and have a pool, because my family wasn't. As long as you swim in somebody's pool, that's what you need to be doing. And I translated that into make the people around you important, because that's for success. So having a great team and not having to be the smartest person in the boardroom and the this, that, and the other. And so I get asked often to talk about that, how I put a couple of companies on the Inc. 500 list, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the anythingest. But I met some gentlemen during my days as a YPO member, and people that you certainly know. And I asked them success, and they said, get your idea, believe in your idea, wake up every day and just work it. And so it applied to officiating, it applied to all that. So having said that, ask me your question.
No, it's really important. I mean, it is really, it's one of the things that we love talking about. I mean, what you believe is success. What does it mean to be a leader? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and why is that so important?
And it's all the same. And the NIL component of all this that's come is very peculiar. I mean, think about it. In a couple of years, we've gone from you as a player can't have an agent to, well, you're going to be getting millions of dollars. So you obviously have to have an attorney by law. You got to have representation. How we jump from there to there, I don't understand. I don't think most people understand. I think there's clear confusion over what, this is me talking personally, what the role of the NCAA is right now. I don't think it's clear. I know there's frustration, and I sat at the Penn State, Ohio State game as we lost that game by not giving our All-American the ball with 8 chances from the 3-yard line, but that's a whole different story. But part of why we didn't win that game was they had a running back who was a preseason All-American at Mississippi. $3 million later, he's the other running back through NIL for Ohio State. It's beyond me. It's so big. I don't know anybody who gets it who's not on the inside. I know because I've worked a little bit. Rachel's worked a little with Penn State. It is changing the face of sports. Yeah. The most recent rule change, I'll give you, as I know we're wrapping up, is that they just made a decision that junior college years as players don't count towards your eligibility at the real college level. So you're now going to have kids be able to spend 7 or 8 years priming themselves through a 5th year in high school, a couple years at a junior college. Now you're 28 years old.
Right. And as you said, without really having really major rules, what the rules are, who's in charge, who's not. Is it the NCAA? Is it your conference? Is it, what happens with high school situation? I mean, there's so much happening, and like, why 4 years of eligibility?
Yeah.
What does that mean for college? Why? What does it mean for high school? What does it mean? And you being able to make money as a high school
It's unbelievable
student,
and
right, as well. So there's a lot of excitement and change. I don't know if it's excitement. Maybe it's just there's just a lot of change.
I know who they think the big benefactor is besides the kids who get the money. And it's always true when we look at our rule changes every year in all the sports, whether it's wanting to have more points scored in a basketball game or more hits and more runs in a baseball game. So let's make the strike zone real clear for everybody. I know that the vendors, what does Adidas care about? What does Nike care about? All that. We know a lot of it's driven by, they want the fans to have a great experience. Now, having a great experience also means make it affordable. And you and I could spend a whole other thing on the affordability of major sports for a family of four. We all talk about that one. But ultimately, I think it's the right idea. The implementation, like anything, will have to work its way through the system. And a lot of people are going to be affected by good and bad.
We'll see how it all plays out.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome having you here.
My friend.
Thank you so much
Great
for coming out to do this show, coming in the studio. Really appreciate
Enjoy.
it. Best of luck with everything that's going on with you, and good luck with tonight at your game.
Thank you. And good luck to you because you've been a success for a very long time. And I admire that. And everything you did for me early to be part of that made a difference. And I appreciated it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here.
See ya. Yeah.
On behalf of the entire 76 Capital team, thank you for joining us for this edition of our Sports Leadership Show. Please remember to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast network or on the 76 Capital website. You can also explore the hundreds of episodes we've produced over the past several years on those same networks. And as always, go out there and make it happen.